Should we start?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, great. Guys,
Okay.
thank you for joining here. Wasn't expecting this many people to turn up, so really appreciate taking time out for this. I'll briefly start with an introduction about myself. I'm Vinay. My hometown is Indore. I went to IIT Bombay in 2011, graduated in 2016. Um, Somewhere in the middle of engineering, I figured that engineering is not something I'll really pursue further ahead. So that was the first sort of elimination which I made, right? And most of the decisions which you will end up making in your journey would largely be understanding what you do not want to do, right? So that was the first thing I came to realize that I don't really want to do. And from there on, I think as I came to realize more and more thing about me, so a lot of things got eliminated. Okay, I don't want to do coding. I don't want to do, let's say, finance role. I don't want to get into core roles. Eventually came to realize creativity is something I would want to be involved in. And not saying creativity is not involved in every kind of role out there, but you could say marketing and product are spaces where creativity is something which is heavily leveraged upon. So then choices became very simple from there on. And another thing which um, you can realize very early on is being at very early stage company gives you um, a steeper learning curve simply because you are thrown into certain problems which in big corporates you'll get access very late in your career. So choices became even simpler once you decide that you want to be in an early stage company or be in a startup, right? So largely I've spent my entire uh, career of, let's say, 7 8 years in working in startups of various size, e-commerce, tech, now fintech, um, and very very different spaces here. E-commerce and tech themselves have a lot of commonality, but again, they are very different space. There are a lot of moving pieces in both the businesses. Fintech is a lot simpler than that. There are very limited moving pieces, but yeah, uh, it's been 7 8 years working in marketing and growth in various startups, and currently work here at Wint, um, taking care of marketing as a co-founder. So yeah, that's it about me. If anything you would like to know about me personally, I'm happy to answer, or we can move to the questions which I guess you guys have submitted before this, before the start of this session. यार ऐसे बहुत बोरिंग हो जाएगा यार.
Let's begin it.
So let's do a couple of things. Firstly, let's turn on the cameras and take it from there. Let me see some faces first. And anybody who wants to ask a question, turn off your mic and just ask your question yourself.
So I have a
It's a
question.
very small group, so we can manage. Yeah, yeah, Aryan, hi.
Hi, sir. Sir, can you share us with us any lessons you learned or challenges you faced during the journey of marketing with Wealth, and have you how you overcame them?
Okay, so again, when you pose the question like that, it's a very very broad question. Again, it's impossible to cover everything because there are many challenges. Something I'll talk about very specifically because I think that will set a right starting point for you to think about marketing or product. Let's first fundamentally understand what marketing or product does, right? Um, Guys, please requesting turn on your cameras. It's not fun to be on this side and not see some faces. At least some of you would turn on your camera, so at least I see someone and feel like talking to a real person. So fundamentally, what marketing and product does at, let's say, a consumer psychology level is convince people to spend something, right? So when you think of marketing, the job of marketing is to gain attention. So when you say you're trying to gain attention of a person, uh, you're asking them to spend their time. You're asking them to spend your time. Chetan, are you able to hear me? Yeah, just give me a thumbs up if you're able to hear me. Is everyone able to hear me? Okay, great. So
Yes.
When you think of marketing, think of figuring out how to convince someone to spend their time on you, right? When you think of product, you can think of either there are products which are just trying to convince people to spend time on them. So you think of Facebook or you think of any social network as a place which is trying to convince you to just spend your time, right? But there are also products which are trying to convince you both time and money. For example, if you go on Mintra, they're asking you to spend your time so that you spend time figuring out if they have something which you would like to wear or buy. But then you eventually have to make a purchase, so you're trying to convince people to spend money as well. In that sense, if you think of product and marketing, they're not very different from where they come from. Eventually you need to understand what do people like to spend their time and money on, right? Now let's break down how do you figure out how to get someone to spend anything, right? So in that journey of figuring out what is worth enough to convince people to spend time, there are basically three moving pieces, right? One is consumer. You would have heard consumer being, so there are different word people will use, like there are different jargons people will use. Like for example, somebody would say market is nothing but consumer demand. What does consumer wish, right? And somebody's market could be just 10 folks, somebody's market could be a million users, right? So it's a very fluid definition. You define the market as per your own need, right? And then there is a product. So let's say if marketing is creating content, or if marketing has created an ad film, that too is a product, right? And then finally there is a team which builds it, right? Out of the three things, market, product, and team, um, tell me which one is the most important thing to get right. Just give your answers in the comment. So let me repeat the question. What do you think a startup has to get right most importantly? Market, or we can say consumer demand, or get the product right, or get the team right? Okay, so some of you are saying team, some of you are saying, most of you are saying team. Okay, so I think the correct answer over here is it is very important to get the market right. What, in short, what it basically means is if you don't really understand the consumer demand really well, having any product of whatsoever or having the best team with you doesn't matter much, right? Let's say you have best of folks, but they don't understand the market, then they would not end up building something of value, right? Even if you have best of product, but it doesn't have a market, then essentially you achieve nothing, right? So first and foremost, the most important thing is to understand, is there a market for something for which you can build a product, for which you need a capable team, right? So far clear on this, right? The most important thing is to really understand market well, right? So now let me get to the question which Aryan asked, right? Okay, some of the challenges which you face very early on in your, let's say, startup journey or journey of marketing, right? Again, the question is, do you understand what the market needs? In other words, people call it product market fit, right? Product market fit is simply figuring out a product which serves a consumer demand really well. Now, that too applies to marketing. When you think of building content, or when you think of creating ad films as a product, if you are able to figure out what market needs, you'll have successful marketing efforts, right? Now let's break the market down. Let's understand further what the market is, right? And let's take example of YouTube. Since many of you would have seen our YouTube channel, I think that would be a good place to start with, right? Now think of you as a consumer here, right? And you go on YouTube and you're consuming a lot of different stuff, right? So given there are enough people consuming stuff on YouTube, there is already a market of content consumption, you don't need to really validate. Like it's really out there. It's very obvious. Now let's specifically talk about personal finance or money related content. Over the last 2 years, many financial influencers or many money related or finance related channels have cropped up and really scaled well. So that's it. That itself is a proof that there is also a market for people who want to consume finance or money related content. Now, the next question when it comes to market comes is how big really is the market, right? Now, one way to think about it is very bottoms up. When I say bottoms up, you would try to see from the evidence in front of you and try to build hypothesis from that. And another is top down approach where you are sort of guesstimating or trying to build a hypothesis in your mind and trying to sort of arrive at a hypothesis which you would like to test and go down on, right? So you take any approach. If you take bottoms up approach, you would see there are already finance channels out there which are garnering views in the range of 3 million, 4 million, and some of them have subscribers in the range of millions. That is good enough evidence. If I want to scale, at least there is a market of millions of people who want to consume something like this, right? Once you know that there is a market for this, now you will have to figure out. Now the next question comes, could you figure out something where you are trying to get the same level of impact which these channels have created? Now, yeah, since there is only one person who has objected, and I'm sorry for it, but let me switch to Hindi because articulation काफी ज़्यादा improve हो जाता है, right, for me. So sorry for that, but let me switch to Hindi. अब ऐसे समझो कि YouTube पे क्या बहुत ज़्यादा हर दिन eyeballs बढ़ रहे हैं. Do you think a lot of newer users are coming to YouTube या eyeballs बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ते जा रहे हैं? ऐसा नहीं हो रहा है, right? Market finite है. Number of eyeballs a place has वो fixed है. तो ये थोड़ा सा है ना जीरो सम गेम है कि अगर मुझे eyeballs मिल रहे हैं तो किसी को eyeballs नहीं मिल रहे. ये बात समझ में आ रही है? ठीक है. तो अल्टीमेटली करना क्या है? You will have to sort of compete with people who are getting eyeballs and figure out how do I get the same stuff, right? And places like social network or these places operate on extreme power law. पावर लॉ ये बोलता है कि बहुत कम लोगों के पास बहुत ज्यादा कंसंट्रेशन में कुछ होगा. जैसे वेल्थ में बोलते हैं ना कि 10% या 1% के पास 90% वेल्थ है या कुछ ऐसा है. तो यूट्यूब में भी है, राइट? कि या कोई भी आप किसी भी मार्केट प्लेस को देखोगे या कि जहां पे भी सॉर्ट ऑफ एक सप्लाई डिमांड का गेम है, वहां पे पावर लॉ किसी ना किसी शेप और फॉर्म में दिख ही जाएगा, राइट? सो बहुत कम लोगों के पास बहुत ज्यादा व्यू होगा. एंड यू अगर इसको स्टेटिस्टिकली देखना है तो बस ये देखो कितने लोग कंटेंट क्रिएट कर रहे हैं, उनमें से कितने लोगों को कितने परसेंटेज व्यू मिल रहे हैं. If at all that data is public, but even if you find that data, you will not be surprised that, let's say, top 10% creators have 90% of the eyeball, right? So what you are really trying to do is build something which has enough novelty कि वो जो top 10% के पास जो eyeballs है ना, वो उनसे तुम चुरा रहे हो, ठीक है? या compete करके ले रहे हो. So अगर इस मार्केट में तुम्हें कुछ बहुत ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट वाली चीज क्रिएट करनी है, देन यू हैव टू फिगर आउट समथिंग जिसकी नोवेल्टी इतनी ज्यादा है कि जो टॉप 10% क्रिएटर्स ने क्रिएट किया है ना, उससे बेटर क्रिएशन तुम्हारा होना चाहिए, ठीक है? और ये बात समझो कि जब यूट्यूब पे तुम जा रहे हो ना और तुम सोच रहे हो मैं फाइनेंस कैटेगरी का हूँ और मैं फाइनेंस की जरूरत वाले लोगों को जाके कंटेंट दिखाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ, तो समवेयर यू डोंट हैव अ सेंस ऑफ द कंपटीशन बिकॉज इफ समबडी इज ऑन यूट्यूब 90% of views on YouTube are recommendation based. Only 10% of views come from search. अब इसका मतलब समझो. सर्च का मतलब है कि किसी ने कुछ सर्च टर्म डाला, रिजल्ट्स देखे और फिर उसे कंज्यूम किया. रिकमेंडेशन का मतलब है कि आप फीड पे गए या फिर आप कोई वीडियो देख रहे थे और एक साइड में बार आता है ना जहाँ पे और रिकमेंडेशंस होते हैं. तो आपके सामने कुछ रिकमेंड हुआ और आपने फिर उसे कंज्यूम किया. तो टिपिकली प्रोडक्ट या मार्केट की टर्मिनोलॉजी में से बोलेंगे सर्च बिहेवियर, डिस्कवरी बिहेवियर, कि कुछ डिस्कवर होके कंज्यूम हो रहा है, राइट? वर्सेस कुछ सर्च होके कंज्यूम हो रहा है. YouTube as a place is predominantly recommendation based, जहाँ 90% of views are generated out of recommendation, not out of search. तो ये जो हम नीड बोलते हैं ना, वो नीड को का आपका लेंस अगर सिर्फ सर्च टर्म्स पे लिमिटेड है तो you'll never understand what the consumers are looking for, क्योंकि you don't really are paying attention to, you're just paying attention to 10% of what consumption is happening. You're not understanding the remaining 90% of consumption. कुछ क्वेश्चन है क्या मानस?
Sir, but how do you approach the target audience segmentation for this?
उस पे आते हैं एक मिनट में. Let this chain of thought complete, right? So अब YouTube पे आके तुम ऐसे सोचो कि तुम सिर्फ फाइनेंस का कंटेंट बनाओगे तो यू कैन जस्ट पे अटेंशन टू व्हाट पीपल आर सर्चिंग. यू विल हैव टू ओवरऑल पे अटेंशन टू व्हाट पीपल आर कंज्यूमिंग इवन थ्रू रिकमेंडेशन. और इवन इफ यू थिंक एक यूजर एक स्टेट ऑफ माइंड में आता है कि वो सिर्फ फाइनेंस का कंज्यूम करेगा, वो वैसा नहीं होता. So you're practically competing with every kind of category out there. So if your view of the competition is as limited as कि मैं सिर्फ other finance content creator से compete कर रहा हूँ, then also you'll go in a wrong direction, right? So when you think of creating content, or if you're trying to create a product out there in a market, you really have to get the right sense of the competitor. And who's the real competitor? Competitor वो नहीं है जो तुम्हारे साथ शुरू किया है. Competitor असली वो है जिसके पास अभी dominant share of market है, right? So जिसे typically हम बोलेंगे एक incumbent player, right? So for example, if I'm competing and I'm trying to, let's say, sell deposits, मैं fixed deposit बेच रहा हूँ, तो मेरा competition वो नहीं है जो अभी मेरे साथ ही मेरी जैसी positioning पे काम करने की कोशिश कर रहा है. हमारा असली competition है banks, वो incumbent player है, market share उसके पास है, तो आपको market share उससे लेना है, right? अब जब ये बात समझ में आ गई है, then you will start to observe कि मुझे ऐसी कुछ चीज क्रिएट करनी है which has a novelty over these folks and a big enough novelty के people give you a chance. Again, see, you will have to understand why startups exist. Startups are not there to offer to users something as good as the current incumbent players do. Startups exist because they have to deliver a differentiation over the incumbent players. And if the differentiation is not big enough, and when I say big enough, it means that it doesn't create a big enough value for a lot of people. राइट? अब आप बिग इनफ को दो तरीके से देख सकते हो. आप उसको हॉरिजॉन्टली भी देख सकते हो कि कितने लोगों को इससे फर्क पड़ेगा, एंड दूसरा डायमेंशन है डेप्थ का, कितना पड़ेगा. बहुत कम पड़ेगा, बहुत ज्यादा पड़ेगा. लाइक लेट्स पोज द क्वेश्चन लाइक हाउ मेनी पीपल आर अफेक्टेड बाय इट एंड हाउ डीपली आर दे अफेक्टेड बाय इट. So in order to create something which really captures the market well, you have to do two things. Once you have defined the market, you have to think of product which caters to as many people in that market as possible. Secondly, it should affect them or create value for them as deeply as possible. Because if the value is not deep enough, na, there's no reason to give you a chance over somebody who has been doing something very consistently over many years, right? So YouTube mein the very early on challenge was just to figure out what the market demands, right? And how do you create something of novelty which is a big novelty, big enough novelty over the current existing players, right? So large part of time went into it. Roughly, we had already invested a lot of money a year into it, and that's when we came to realize what the market needs, right? अब ये journey कैसे होती है? If you want me to get into that, let me know. How does this journey look like, or etc.
Yeah, so like it would be great if you could elaborate more on that.
Okay. So
I just, sir, like to be more particular about the question, like for me, like you said, you in the beginning of your YouTube journey, you had to figure out the depth and impact it would get associated with. What I believe is that right now the world we are living in is that marketing is a lot related to content. So basically, your YouTube channel solves somewhat the problem of normal people who are facing financial problems and get to know stories about people who have done good in their lives and also build wealth simultaneously. So that's what I want to ponder upon, that how do you build that research and what exactly comes to your mind while growing your content and marketing?
ठीक है. So इसका थोड़ा सा एक स्पेसिफिक आंसर देता हूँ based on the state currently you guys are at, right? इतने अर्ली ऑन जहाँ पे देखो, रिसर्च को है ना इस तरीके से देखो. रिसर्च तो मैं ना लोगों को दो बकेट्स में बांट सकते हो. एक बकेट है उन कंज्यूमर्स की जिन्हें तुम बहुत अच्छे से जानते हो, जिनके बारे में तुम्हारा इंट्यूशन गलत नहीं हो सकता। एग्जाम्पल है कि पीपल हु आर मच सिमिलर टू यू, राइट? तुम्हारे जैसे जो लोग हैं, तुम्हारी एज ग्रुप में जो लोग हैं, तुम्हारे जैसे सोशल कंटेक्स्ट में, क्लास में जो लोग हैं, उनको तुमसे बेहतर तो कोई नहीं समझता, राइट? तो वहां पे वुड यू से कि तुम्हारा इंट्यूशन इज एज गुड एज डूइंग द बेस्ट रिसर्च आउट देयर? एंड देन देयर इज अ बकेट ऑफ यूजर्स जिनसे तुम रिलेट नहीं कर पाओगे, अ, जिनकी नीड तुम समझ नहीं पाओगे, जिनकी मोटिवेशन, जिनके प्रॉब्लम्स, उनकी इनसिक्योरिटीज तुम समझ नहीं पाओगे, राइट? जब तुम इतने अर्ली हो ना करियर में, मेरा हमेशा सजेशन यही रहेगा कि इफ यू वांट टू टेक बेबी स्टेप्स, स्टार्ट वर्किंग इन अ मार्केट और स्टार्ट बिल्डिंग ऑन समथिंग जहाँ पे कंज्यूमर तुम्हारे जैसे ही हो। क्योंकि फिर क्या है ना कि तुम अपने इंट्यूशन को और अपने गट को बहुत ज्यादा ट्रस्ट कर पाओगे। अब ये क्यों जरूरी है यार? ये सारा काम जो है ना बहुत कमर्शियल है, तो गेटिंग इट रॉन्ग इज ऑल्सो नॉट अ गुड। इट्स बेटर टू सॉर्ट ऑफ स्टेप इन टू समथिंग वेयर यू कैन अप्लाई योर सेल्फ इन द बेस्ट पॉसिबल मैनर। अब जब अगर तुम में बहुत ज्यादा एम्पैथी है, बहुत ज्यादा एम्पैथी है, तो तुम बिना रिसर्च करे भी इंट्यूटिवली समझ सकते हो कि यार ऐसे कंज्यूमर्स जो मेरे जैसे नहीं है, व्हाट दे मस्ट बी गोइंग थ्रू, राइट? जैसे एग्जांपल है समबडी हुज इन देयर 40s या 50s। अब तुम ऐसे थ्योरेटिकली तो तुम सोच के हाइपोथेसाइज कर सकते हो ऐसा होगा वैसा होगा, बट तुम्हें एम्पैथी नहीं है, तो तुम्हें एक्चुअली में काफी हद तक वो कंज्यूमर समझ में नहीं आएगा, या वो कैसे सोचता है, उसकी इनसिक्योरिटी क्या है, उस पॉइंट पे उसकी लाइफ की प्रायोरिटीज क्या है। तो just to keep things very simple now, if you want to build something or if you want to, Shishti, I'll get to that question in a second. तो अगर तुम्हें शुरू करना है और तुम्हें ऐसी जगह से शुरू करना है जहां तुम खुद को बहुत अच्छे से अप्लाई कर पाओ, तो द बेस्ट प्लेस वुड बी वर्किंग इन अ स्पेस जहां पे तुम खुद किसी तुम खुद को उस मार्केट का एक हिस्सा समझते हो, राइट? कि आई रिप्रेजेंट majority ऑफ द कंज्यूमर्स इन दिस मार्केट। ये मेरे जैसे लोग हैं, आई कैन रिलेट टू दैट प्रॉब्लम्स, आई कैन रिलेट टू व्हाट दे गो थ्रू, एंड इन दैट केस ना तुम अपने इंट्यूशन पे रिलाई कर पाओगे। रिसर्च वहां लगता है जहां पे इंट्यूशन काम नहीं आ सकता, जहां पे तुम अपने इंट्यूशन को ट्रस्ट नहीं कर पाओगे, वहीं पे तो रिसर्च करोगे ना जाके, कि तुम कंज्यूमर को समझने की कोशिश करोगे। बट व्हाट इफ अगर तुमने रिसर्च भी कर लिया बट तुम में एम्पैथी नहीं है, तो वैसी रिसर्च का भी क्या मतलब? तो अगर अभी शुरू कर रहे हो एंड you want to play by your strength, which I will always advise people to do, rather than working on something you're not good at and being average at many things, I would suggest कि it's okay, have some weaknesses, it's okay, there will always be people who should come in and help you in your weakness, and you should be secure or self-aware enough to let people know कि this is not what I'm good at, but this is something I'm really good at. अब यार कुछ बेस लेवल चीजें तो यार सब एक्सपेक्ट करेंगे कि यार यू आर गुड एट कम्युनिकेटिंग, यू आर गुड एट, राइट? तो वो तो यार बेस लेवल एक्सपेक्टेशन है, वो सब चीजें स्क्रो अप नहीं कर सकते थे। सो लेट्स से इफ यू फील यू आर रियली good at creativity, if you are really good at sort of speaking to people, जैसे speaking to people itself is a huge skill. It's a very taxing thing to do every day, in and out, speak with people and try to sort of build collaboration, yeah, organize things more, set process up, set cross team collaborations, ये सब मुश्किल काम होते हैं. So you need people to come in place who are really good at speaking and creating those synergies and building those relationships in place. So know your strength and play by them, right? Again, so hence my suggestion would always be कि try to work in a market where your intuitions uh, will largely be right. And the simple answer or simple thing भी कि अगर तुम खुद उस market का एक dominant हिस्सा हो, if your persona personality is what predominantly the market is similar to, operate in that space, use your intuition, and then chances of getting things right will become better, right? So the way you figure out what, so firstly, अब ये जो मैंने बताया था टीम, प्रोडक्ट और मार्केट, राइट? सो सबसे पहली चीज तो एस्टेब्लिश कर ली, मार्केट है, मिलियंस ऑफ व्यूज आ रहे हैं फाइनेंशियल चैनल्स को, एंड मिलियंस में कंजम्पशन भी हो रहा है कंटेंट का। सो यू नो देयर इज अ मार्केट, और मार्केट का एक सर्टेन साइज है, और वो साइंस मार्केट का साइज सफिशिएंटली बिग है फॉर यू टू स्पेंड योर टाइम ओवर देयर। अब जब आप वीसी फंडेड स्टार्टअप कर रहे हो ना, और जब आप बूटस्ट्रैप बिजनेस कर रहे हो तो बहुत फर्क होता है, क्योंकि जब आप वीसी फंडेड स्टार्टअप कर रहे हो तो आपने एक वीसी को एक प्रॉमिस करके वो पैसे लिया है, एंड आपकी एक ड्यूटी है टू जस्टिफाई दैट, राइट? और उस वीसी ने किसी एलपी से पैसा उठाया है और उसे वो जस्टिफाई करना है। सो वीसी मनी जहाँ इन्वॉल्व हो जाता है ना, एक मार्केट का साइज बाय डिफॉल्ट डिफाइन हो जाता है कि यार इतना बड़ा तो मार्केट होना ही चाहिए। Hence, if you, let's say, if you step into YouTube, if the market is not big enough, then a VC funded startup may not sort of enter that space or build on that. A market has to be big enough for it to make sense कि आपने VC से जो पैसा उठाया आप उसे डिप्लॉय करके कुछ वैल्यू क्रिएशन कर पाओ, राइट? बट अगर आप बूटस्ट्रैप्ड हो तो फिर तो आप आपकी मर्जी के मालिक हो। देन यू कैन चूज टू डिसाइड आप किस मार्केट के लिए काम कर रहे हो, किसके लिए नहीं कर रहे हो, एंड the size of market, the size of business you want to build is entirely up to you because you are purely operating on your own money and your own resources, right? So अब जब मार्केट का क्वेश्चन आंसर हो गया, आई थिंक द सेकंड थिंग टू गेट राइट इज देन हैव पीपल और बिल्ड अ टीम जिसका इंट्यूशन वुड बी राइट अबाउट दिस मार्केट. So there are many things to get in right about the team, right? There are several things culture wise, etc. So I'm not going to get there. I will keep things specifically about. So you build a team which has very high judgment of that market, right? And अगर वो first place में नहीं होगा, then होगा ये कि the kind of ideas team will put, that kind of suggestions team will make will not be on point. So for them to be on point, you need to build a team which has very very high intuition about the market. What is high intuition? High intuition का मतलब ये है कि अगर वो out of their intuition कुछ decision या judgment pass करते हैं market के बारे में, they're right most of the time. और अगर वो exhibit नहीं हो रहा है, then the team you have built is wrong, right? And this is not something somebody can overnight achieve. This is something which will take a lot of time, and you don't have that much time. So if you want to succeed, let's say in a year or two about something, it's better to have a team which has very high intuition about the market. Once you have such a team and skills in place, then product build करना चालू करोगे. अब एंड सुनो, पूरी टीम के पास वो इंट्यूशन होना जरूरी नहीं है, बट जो लोग जज करेंगे क्या प्रोडक्ट बनाना है, लेट्स से इफ देयर इज अ सिंगल पर्सन हु इज गोइंग टू डिसाइड what YouTube titles are you going to make, at least that person has to have very high intuition, right? So once, and then you need several other skills. You need writers, you need cinematographers, you need editing folks, you need a lot of people in that team. But let's say the ideal team is now built and there is a market out there, अब प्रोडक्ट बनाना है. सबसे पहला स्टेप तो ये हो गया कि at least get the product as good as the incumbent players. So let's say in this case, if the incumbent players are, let's say someone like Ankur or someone like, let's say, Akshat, then your product should at least look as good as them. So at least ये capability demonstrate हो गई कि you can create a really good product. Now the only problem which remains after that is figuring out which has enough big enough novelty कि you will get the views instead of the incumbent players. And given तुम्हें intuition है, उस market के बारे में judgment है, so you can think and operate like this कि अगर अब यहीं पे ना प्रॉब्लम होती है, the mistake which most of the people make is they don't know where to switch from a creator to a consumer. जब आप creator होते हो ना, you'll get emotional about your own creations or about your own ideas. Now stop being a creator for a moment and switch to being a consumer, objective consumer, and think कि यार ये जो idea pitch हो रहा है, ये मैं खुद देखूंगा क्या? अगर मैं आज YouTube पे जाता हूँ, does this idea has big enough novelty for me to pay attention to them versus paying attention to anybody else? And if you are honest and if you are self-aware as a consumer, you will mostly get the yes and no right. So then it's a process of elimination. You will try to come up with as many ideas as possible, and as an honest, a consumer who is honest to him or herself, you will try to sort of reject those ideas which you yourself don't feel कि यार इसमें उतनी नॉलिटी नहीं है कि इस आइडिया पे काम करेंगे तो इट विल, मैं खुद देखने को रेडी नहीं हूँ अगर ये मेरे फीड में आज आ गया और हमारी चैनल सिर्फ 1000 सब्सक्राइबर की है और ये आइडिया मेरे सामने आया या इसका थंबनेल टाइटल जिस तरीके से आप सोच रहे हो, पैकेजिंग सोच रहे हो, मेरे सामने, मैं खुद इसको नहीं क्लिक करने वाला. अब now circling back to what I said, it is if you're starting early, and I still believe I'm still in a very early stage of my journey, I will try to operate in spaces जहाँ पे मैं खुद कंज्यूमर हूँ या खुद कंज्यूमर की तरह सोच सकता हूँ उस कैटेगरी का एक लाइक, और मेरे जैसे बहुत सारे कंज्यूमर वहाँ हैं, एंड देन आई ट्राई टू बी एज ऑनेस्ट about will I consume it or not and decide things by that and eliminate a lot of noise. क्योंकि आइडियाज ऐसा है ना कि देखो अब हम यहाँ पे आ गए हैं कि हम रिजेक्शन, आइडियाज के रिजेक्शन पे बात कर रहे हैं, राइट? तो टिपिकली दो ही चीजें हैं, एडिशन सब्ट्रैक्शन। क्या आप आइडियाज ऐड करोगे, आइडिया सब्ट्रैक्ट करोगे? लेट्स थिंक अबाउट एन एडिशन एंड सब्ट्रैक्शन, राइट? एडिशन is easy, right? To come up with ideas is easy. At least in younger folks, it's easier. जब तुम यंग होते हो तो तुम ज्यादा ओरिजिनल होते हो, राइट? एज यू ग्रो वाइजर, योर ओरिजिनलिटी गोज डाउन। तो ये टाइमलाइन ऐसी कि जब आप बहुत यंग होते हो ना, देन यू कैन कम अप विद द मोस्ट ओरिजिनल नॉवेल्टी स्टफ। एंड एज यू ग्रो ओल्डर, तुम्हारा एडिशन का स्किल थोड़ा गिरते जाता है और तुम्हारा सब्ट्रैक्शन का स्किल इंप्रूव होते जाता है। सब्ट्रैक्शन इज नथिंग बट विजडम। सो इसको ऐसे देखो कि ये इस तरह का है कि धीरे धीरे एज यू ग्रो वाइजर, यू नो व्हाट नॉट टू डू, but you also don't, you become worse at addition, right? So addition is easy when, at least when you're younger, it's easy to come up with ideas, but addition is expensive because the moment you add something na, you commit resources to it. So you'll commit time, money, emotional energy, mental energy, physical energy, etc, right? अब subtraction के बारे में सोचो। Subtraction is the harder thing to do. It's hard to figure out what not to do, but it's cheap. The moment you do a subtraction now, you immediately take away all the resources from it. If you get the addition and subtraction done right, like what that means is subtract something which should have been added, and add something, usko subtract mat karna, which can create value. If you get these two things right, your opportunity cost is minimum, right? For example, if you spend energy on a lot of stuff which will not work out, it is spending your time and energy and putting the right thing further away from you. So usme ek opportunity cost hai, right? So it's very important to get addition and subtraction very right. And younger folks would always be great at addition, but as you grow wiser, you become better at subtraction, right? So if you get this addition subtraction right, eventually you will reach a point where you will have a real novelty idea. अगर वो आइडिया मिला, उसे एग्जीक्यूट करोगे। अब आइडिया का एक इंपॉर्टेंट फीचर है कि वो एक बार काम नहीं करना चाहिए, वो रेप्लिकेबल होना चाहिए। अगर वो सिर्फ एक बार काम कर रहा है तो उसका कोई मतलब नहीं है, क्योंकि फिर अगला क्या करोगे, राइट? Especially in a space like YouTube, जहाँ पे if you work on standalone novelty ideas ना, it's great. Then you'll have to come up with more standalone ideas. YouTube को एक as a place समझो तो it closely mimics how TV used to behave. Episodic in nature. कि एक तुमने पायलट किया, वो सक्सेसफुल हुआ, now can you create a series out of it? Can you create episodes out of it? So if you create a really good episodic content का पायलट और वो सक्सेसफुल हो गया, then you can simply scale that idea. And एक और चीज होती है कि यार एक फ्रेशनेस का रेट होता है हर एक जगह पे। थिंग्स हैव टू बी रिफ्रेश्ड एट अ टाइम। सो हर चीज की एक शेल्फ लाइफ है, which means कि you will have to consistently do more and more pilots so that एक जो तुम्हारी सक्सेसफुल सीरीज थी वो अपने sort of हो गया उसका, वो अब वो फ्रेश नहीं रही, right? Then you need more pilots and you need to sort of continue with more episodes, more series ideas, right? So जैसे TV shows were made कि उसका pilot होता है, if the pilot is successful then you scale the series and you keep it on जब तक it is able to keep people's attention. The moment it starts to decline, then you give that slot to some other show, ठीक है? So ये जो initial journey है उसमें, अब let me try to summarize what I've said, right? Firstly, people don't understand market well, and that's a challenge. Solution ये है, operate in a market जहाँ पे तुम्हारा intuition काफी सही बैठे, ठीक है? Mistake people we make with team सही नहीं है to take those intuitive calls. देखो प्रोडक्ट बन जाएगा, अच्छा प्रोडक्ट, क्राफ्टिंग का स्किल वाले, अच्छे क्राफ्टिंग के स्किल वाले मिल जाए, अच्छा एडिटर मिल जाएगा, अच्छा सिनेमेटोग्राफर मिल जाएगा, etc. बट कौन सा आइडिया सही है, कौन सा आइडिया गलत है, वो जजमेंट वाले लोग कम ही होंगे। सो वैसा जजमेंट टीम में हो और वो एक्सप्रेसली दिख रहा है उसका एविडेंस, इफ यू गेट दैट राइट तो टीम सही बन गई है। और बाकी ये सारे स्किल सेट लगेंगे, आई एम नॉट सेइंग ये स्किल सेट नहीं लगते, बट ये स्किल सेट भी लगेंगे। मोर इंपॉर्टेंटली लगेगा मार्केट के सही जजमेंट वाले लोग उस टीम में। एंड फाइनली जब प्रोडक्ट बिल्ड करने का सोचो तो एडिशन और सब्ट्रैक्शन सही से कर पाओ वो बहुत मुश्किल है, क्योंकि people find it hard to switch their roles between a creator and consumer and use their own judgment, क्योंकि सब लोग ना अपने आइडियाज को लेके सेंटी हो जाते हैं, वहां अपनी इनसिक्योरिटीज और ये सब चीजों के चक्कर में they would invest in an idea which they're emotional about, it doesn't work out, अगर वो ऑब्जेक्टिवली एज अ कंज्यूमर सोच लेते कि मैं खुद ये आइडिया देखूंगा कि नहीं देखूंगा, तो काफी हद तक आंसर अंदर से इंट्यूशन से आ जाएगा कि यार मैं खुद नहीं यूट्यूब पे देखने वाला। मेरे बेंचमार्क वॉइस मेरे मेरे बेंचमार्क किस तरह के हैं? मैं टेडेड देखता हूँ, मैं वॉक्स देखता हूँ, मैं वाइफ देखता हूँ, मैं ब्रूट देखता हूँ, मैं जॉनी हैरिस देखता हूँ। अब जब मेरे बेंचमार्क वो है और मैं उस तरह का कंटेंट पसंद करता हूँ, तो द आइडिया एंड द प्रोडक्ट शुड बी कन्विंसिंग इनफ कि वो उनसे compete कर पाए। और जब उनसे ही compete नहीं कर पा रहा है, तो मेरे को भरोसा ही नहीं होगा मैं ये देखूंगा। ठीक है, इज दैट answering your question about that? Okay, let's come to what Shishti had asked as a follow through on this. But isn't marketing about understanding the needs of those we can't really relate with, because my consumer base is not going to be limited to people I relate with, right? Shishti, ये define यार तुम खुद कर रहे हो. See, um, eventually you would want to understand as many people as you want to understand, right? But let's say if that is not the strength you currently possess, and there are enough people like you out there, then it's easier uh, to sort of build products for them or to market to them relative to people who you don't really relate to, right? Because then it will become a very uphill task, right? And if you know about yourself, कि you understand, let's say people who are not like you really well, if you have that belief in you and if you feel कि तुम्हारा intuition बैठ जाएगा, तो go for it. But marketing का ऐसा कोई mandate नहीं है कि उसको जरूरी है समझना ऐसे लोग जो जिनसे वो relate नहीं कर पाते. वो तो you are putting yourself in that position, right? मार्केटिंग का काम सिर्फ एक मार्केट का अटेंशन ग्रैब करना है, राइट? अब अटेंशन ग्रैब करने के स्टेजेस है, राइट? लेट्स ब्रेक मार्केटिंग डाउन, राइट? सो मार्केटिंग के स्टेजेस ये है, या ब्रांड की इक्विटी बिल्ड करने के स्टेजेस है: अवेयरनेस, रेलेवेंस, परफॉर्मेंस एडवांटेज एंड एसोसिएशन. ठीक है, सो लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड दीज थिंग्स more finely. At awareness stage, you just want people to know about you, know what you do or sell, and have a connection with you. एग्जाम्पल के तौर पे बता रहा हूँ कि let's say you want to buy something, and in your, let's say, circle of people you know really well, there is someone who offers the same thing. Would immediately your bias not be to go to just that person who you already know for many years and trust, and just trust that person with that thing, right? So brand build करने का काम और marketing का काम is much similar to how real relationships work. How do you, and मैं उन relationships की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ जो तुम by birth लेके आए हो, तुम्हारे रिश्तेदार, पेरेंट्स, ब्रदर. जो रिलेशनशिप तुमने अपनी कॉस्ट लगा के बिल्ड करी है, यू हैव स्पेंट योर टाइम एंड मनी इन बिल्डिंग सर्टेन रिलेशनशिप्स इन योर कॉलेज, इन योर स्कूल, व्हाइल यू विल स्टार्ट वर्किंग, राइट? सो वो सारे जो रिलेशंस और कनेक्शन है, मैं उनकी बात कर रहा हूँ. सो मार्केटिंग इज मच सिमिलर टू दैट, कि you have to build a connection with someone and let them know who you are, what you do, and have some connection which is deep enough कि the other person gives you a chance over others. ठीक है, so awareness की stage पे if people know who you are, what category you operate in, and they have some connection with you which is at least big enough, then the connection other players in the same space have built, then you have done the marketing right. It could very well be that people know you, people know what you do, but compared to you, your competitor have more connection with folks. And when I say connection, you just draw parallel to relationship. जैसे connection का एक बड़ा feature होता है कि making others feel I know them really well, right? Many of your friends would be like, जिनके बारे में तुम ऐसे सोचते हो कि यार वो तुम्हें बहुत अच्छे से जानते हैं. ब्रांड अपने कंटेंट के थ्रू भी वो कर सकती है, अगर उसकी स्टोरी बहुत ज्यादा रिलेटेबल है किसी के लिए. the person who's consuming that story may feel like, यार this brand really understands me well, या इसका कंटेंट मेरे साथ बहुत रेजोनेट करता है. सो वहां पे कनेक्शन बिल्ड हो गया, राइट? सो अवेयरनेस पे ऑल यू विल केयर अबाउट इज letting people know who you are, what do you do, and having a relationship or building a relationship as deep as possible. अब वो कितना डीप हो सकता है, वो मतलब ये इस पे कोई अपर लिमिट नहीं है, राइट? अब रेलेवेंस का काम है कि अवेयरनेस हो गया, बट अब मोमेंट ऑफ ट्रूथ है, वो बंदे को उस चीज की जरूरत है, तो वो आ रहा है तुम पॉइंट ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन पे, मोर इम्पोर्टेंट है जो पॉइंट ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है उस पर अगर तुम्हारा प्रोडक्ट या सर्विस नहीं है तो फिर तो वो तुम्हें इवेलुएट ही नहीं कर पाएगा। मान लेते हैं पॉइंट ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन पे प्रोडक्ट है, तो रेलेवेंस का काम है एक प्रॉमिस करना which fits into their requirement, right? So the brand is making a promise which is really solving the need the user has. Then आता है परफॉर्मेंस। परफॉर्मेंस में तुम्हें इस बात का एविडेंस देना है कि जो प्रॉमिस ब्रांड कर रही है वो प्रॉमिस वो रखेगी। सी मैं ये सब है ना इलस्ट्रेट करूंगा एक एग्जांपल से, तो डोंट वरी अबाउट सॉर्ट ऑफ इतना टेंशन मत लेना, ठीक है। परफॉर्मेंस का काम है उस प्रॉमिस का एविडेंस क्या है कि वुड यू रियली कीप दैट प्रॉमिस, ठीक है। फिर आता है एडवांटेज। इस मोमेंट पे जहाँ पे द पर्सन इज कन्विंस्ड कि हाँ दिस इज रेलेवेंट टू मी, दे कीप देयर प्रॉमिस, बट दे स्टिल फील लाइक कि यार आई नीड टू चेक कि डू आई गेट एन एडवांटेज विद अदर प्लेयर्स। एडवांटेजेस कुड बी ऑफ मेनी फॉर्म, मोस्ट कॉमन फॉर्म्स ऑफ एडवांटेजेस इसी प्राइस पे क्या बेटर क्वालिटी मिल सकती है या यही क्वालिटी क्या लोअर प्राइस पे मिल सकती है। बात समझ रहे हो? ठीक है। एन एडवांटेज भी अगर उन्हें आपकी ब्रांड के साथ ही दिख रहा है देन they'll end up making a purchase, and association तब build होता है when they finally use that product and it performs as expected कि you have kept your promise, तो एक association build होना चालू होगा। and the more iteration a user does of the same thing, association और deep होते जाएगा, और एक point पे association इतना deep हो जाएगा कि वो किसी और को entertain ही नहीं करेंगे, वो सीधे आपके पास ही आएंगे। now let me give you a real life example of this. Let's say you have to buy a shirt. Let's कोई volunteer करेगा, like somebody wants to do this exercise with me, raise your hand.
Yeah, sir. I will do it, sir. I would like to, sir. Uh,
एंड यार अपन ने बात कर ली, किसी और को मौका दे।
अच्छा अच्छा ठीक।
चल एनीबॉडी हु जस्ट अ रेज ऑफ हैंड, लेट्स जस्ट डू अ क्विक एक्सरसाइज। अभी ये पेस ठीक लग रहा है ना? हाथ रेज करो अगर ये पेस ठीक है। ये कम ही लोग हैं, बाकी लोगों को पेस से दिक्कत है क्या कुछ? ठीक है ठीक है ठीक है, हो गया हो गया हो गया। और मजा आ रहा है ना? वो मजा
यस
आना
सर,
बहुत जरूरी
काफी
है।
अच्छा।
नहीं, रेज ऑफ हैंड, मजा आ रहा हो तो, नहीं मजा आ रहा है तो लेट्स डू समथिंग अबाउट इट। अबे सिर्फ 13 ही लोगों ने हाथ रेज करने, 15, चलो ठीक है ठीक है, चलो आधे लोगों को तो मजा आ रहा है, ठीक है cool। ठीक है, तो अभी चलो इस पे आ जाते हैं। ये हट जाए, हाँ ठीक है। रेज योर हैंड इफ यू वांट टू डू अ फन एक्सरसाइज विद मी। ओके चलो सर्वेश, कैन यू टर्न ऑन योर कैमरा? सर्वेश बात करनी है यार,
Yeah,
शक्ल तो दिखाओ।
just a second, sir. Yeah, hello, sir.
ठीक है चलो चलो सर्वेश, तुमको है ना एक फॉर्मल शर्ट खरीदनी है क्योंकि तुम्हें अपनी बहन की शादी में सूट पहनना है, ठीक है। तो एक तुम्हें स्पेसिफिकली फॉर्मल शर्ट खरीदनी है, तो तुम कहाँ जाओगे?
Favorite Raymond.
नहीं, अभी मान लो तुम्हें कोई ब्रांड पता ही नहीं है, मान लो उस स्टेज पे हो तुम कि तुम्हारा कोई अभी कोई बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग प्रेफरेंस नहीं है, यू मे नो सम ब्रांड्स बट अभी तुम ऐसे मन बना के नहीं गए हो, ऐसे स्ट्रॉन्ग एसोसिएशन नहीं है, ठीक है। तो तुम जाओगे कहाँ खरीदने?
मार्केट में जहाँ पे ऐसे लाइन से 10 दुकान मिलेंगे।
मॉल है, राइट?
मॉल में या
तो मॉल क्या हो गया? मॉल हो गया एक प्लेस ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन।
हाँ,
तो सबसे पहले तो उनका मर गया जो उस जगह पे नहीं है जहाँ पे तू खरीदने जाने वाला है, विच इज तेरी प्रॉक्सिमिटी में जो मॉल है।
ठीक है।
तो सबसे पहले किसका कटा? उसका कटा जो प्लेस ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन पे है ही नहीं, ठीक है। अब यू रीच द मॉल, टिपिकली एक ही कैटेगरी की शॉप एक ही रो में होती है, उसमें नहीं जाएंगे क्यों होती है, वो सब तुम यूट्यूब पे वीडियोस है उसके देख लेना, बट लाइन से होंगी, राइट? अब मान ले तेरे सामने 10 दुकानें हैं, 10 दुकानों में से सबसे पहले किसका कटेगा?
सबसे पहले किसका
कटेगा?
मतलब बाहर से देख के, मतलब अपीयरेंस, वैसे फर्स्ट इंप्रेशन।
Even before that, who would
budget,
you first reject?
मल्टीपल फैक्टर्स, इसमें तो आपका ऐसे पर्सनल प्रेफरेंस आने लगेगा इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग।
चलेगा ना, तू बता ना तेरा पर्सनल प्रेफरेंस क्या है। सबसे
मतलब
पहले लेट्स से 10 हैं और 10 में से अगर 4 एलिमिनेट हो रहे हैं तो व्हाट वुड बी द मोस्ट कॉमन रीजन फॉर दैट टू हैपन?
पहला तो दुकान का साइज मैटर करेगा मेरे को, अगर शर्ट लेने जाना तो आई नीड वैरायटी, मतलब अगर शर्ट का बहुत स्पेसिफिक
ठीक है,
एग्जांपल
चल मैं आंसर पे आ जाता हूँ। सबसे पहले कटेगा उनका जो ब्रांड्स तेरे को पता ही नहीं है।
नहीं, आप ब्रांड्स का बात, आप जैसे यू रिजेक्टेड द आंसर रेमंड, सो डू यू वांट एज ए मार्केट प्लेस?
हाँ, अपन मॉल में घुसे ना, 10 ब्रांड्स हैं,
अच्छा मॉल है, ठीक है, हाँ नहीं ब्रांड जो
ठीक
नहीं
है।
नाम पता, हाँ
तो सबसे पहला काम क्या है अवेयरनेस का, कि मॉल में घुसने से पहले लोगों को ये पता हो कि आपकी ब्रांड फॉर्मल शर्ट्स बेचती है।
ठीक है।
एंड लार्जली दैट जॉब इज आउटसाइड ऑफ द मॉल, दैट्स नॉट इनसाइड ऑफ द मॉल, ठीक है। तो ब्रांडिंग उस मोमेंट पे भी हो सकती है जिस मोमेंट पे आपको एक्चुअली नीड हो उसकी, बट लार्जली ब्रांडिंग का या ब्रांड बिल्डिंग का या अवेयरनेस का जो काम है, इट इट इज मच बिफोर somebody actually has a need for your product. You start building that relationship when people don't have a need, right? So that in the moment of need, अगर आपके बारे में वो रिकॉल कर पाते हैं और आपको सबसे पहले याद करते हैं, तो यू गेट अ प्रेफरेंस ओवर अदर। इनको टेक्निकल टर्म में क्या बोलते हैं? सो अवेयरनेस के 2 मेट्रिक होते हैं, 2-3 मेट्रिक होते हैं। अवेयरनेस का सबसे पहला मेट्रिक होता है कि लेट्स से इफ यू हैव डिफाइंड अ मार्केट एज 100 people, how many people are aware about you, right? So typically brands will measure this through an exercise called brand track. Okay, now brand track mein they will check how many people know about me. If the, let's say the size of market is 100 as per what my definition of the market is, and if 80-90% of people already know about me, my awareness is really good, right? Now the second, अब awareness का एक feature होता है recall. If they're not able to recall you, then there is no awareness, right? So right awareness is when people are able to recall you, when they go in front of those 10 shop and they have a recall of you. Hey, I know these brands. That's what right recall is. So brand track mein, typically the way the brand track is done, the surveyor or the researcher would end up asking people, when it comes to buying formal shirt, which are the top brands coming to your mind. And if your name is in the list of 4, 5, 6, whatever number of answers people give, then you can say people have a recall about me. Then you can say there is awareness about me. But सिर्फ awareness काफी नहीं होता. Awareness के बाद आता है top of mind share. टॉप ऑफ माइंड शेयर इज जब सर्वे हो रहा है एंड लोग लिस्ट ऑफ नाम बता रहे हैं, जिसका नाम सबसे पहले आता है उसके पास माइंड शेयर सबसे ऊपर है, which means that that person has the highest probability of getting the user's attention first over others. How do you build top of mind share? वो अवेयरनेस से नहीं होगा, वो डेप्थ ऑफ कनेक्शन से होगा, कि जिसका कनेक्शन ज्यादा डीप है उस ब्रांड के साथ, उसका नाम सबसे पहले आएगा। आप कनेक्शन आप किसी को सर्व करके भी कर सकते हो, कि वो मेरी दुकान में आया था, मैंने जो प्रॉमिस किया था, केप्ट दैट प्रॉमिस, जब वो बंदे ने वो कंज्यूम किया, वो वैसे ही निकला जैसा मेरा प्रॉमिस था, एंड एक कनेक्शन बिल्ड होना चालू हो जाएगा। या फिर यू कैन ऑल्सो बिल्ड अ कनेक्शन बाय स्टोरी टेलिंग, थ्रू योर कंटेंट, थ्रू योर एड फिल्म्स, थ्रू योर यूट्यूब चैनल, where you put things out through which the other person understands you, identifies with you, finds you relatable, finds you someone who's doing something which is adding real value in their life. Key feature here is, when you think of doing activities of brand awareness, you have to think of customers benefit or adding value to the customer more than adding value to yourself. If you'll prioritize adding value to yourself over adding value to the user, then you'll always get it wrong. For example, अगर ad film बनानी है और वो ad film मैं कॉल टू एक्शन भरने के चक्कर में, कि 6 फीचर्स हैं, 6 फीचर्स के बारे में भी बताओ, सब करो, एंड वो सब बताने के चक्कर में आप ऐसी फिल्म, यू माइट एंड अप मेकिंग अ फिल्म व्हिच इज लार्जली सॉर्ट ऑफ जस्ट, उसमें कोई कस्टमर का बेनिफिट नहीं हो रहा ना। इफ somebody spending time watching your ad, there should be a value addition in their life. Value addition कुछ भी हो सकता है, you have entertained them, you have given them an insight, you have built, right? There are certain outcomes over here which you want to achieve, but real outcome is, okay, let's say in any relationship you want to build a personal connection with someone, you'll start sharing stories. With those stories, you are trying to convince the other person, I am very similar to you and I understand who you are, and I we find each other relatable to each other, right? So वो awareness का काम हो गया. So सबसे पहले मॉल में एंटर करे, आधी 10 में से 4 एलिमिनेट हो गए because they never invested in creating awareness. Next thing is relevance, right? So the next thing which comes is what you were trying to say, कि मैं वो 10 दुकानों को देख रहा हूँ, 4 एलिमिनेट हो गई, बची 6 में मैं रेलेवेंस चेक कर रहा हूँ कि वो शॉप के बाहर से काफी इवैल्यूएशन हो जाता है, राइट? देयर इज अ रीजन दे पुट आउट सर्टेन क्लोथ्स आउट इन द डिस्प्ले बाहर मैनिक्विन पे, There is a reason the hoardings are kept outside, which have flat 50% off, flat 40% off. All of them are trying to win over the other brands in terms of creating a higher relevance with the user before the user steps in. So whichever brand has done a better job in creating a better out. See, there could be 6 brands. If you have a very strong association and if you really like a brand, you will directly enter that store. In which case, वो relevance वहाँ पे जो भी establish हो रहा है उसका कोई point नहीं है, right? But let's give fair chance to all the 6 brands. Okay, all are equally, all have equal weightage in a user's mind when it comes to, let's say, having a connection. Then who comes out as the more, let's say किसी ने flat 50% डाल दिया है, वो outrightly हो सकता है कि बाकी 5 को sort of out compete कर दे रहा है in terms of establishing high relevance, because the user की need में price point is a big factor, right? So the moment when people evaluate outside the shop, which shop should I enter, given they give equal importance to all the 6 brands, is sort of brand trying to portray कि whatever you need, I have that, right? And I'm relevant to your need, right? If that you do successfully and you understand better than other brands, then the user will step into the store. एंड वहाँ रेलेवेंस की जर्नी खत्म नहीं हुई. अंदर स्टोर में जाके उसे जो चाहिए, जो प्राइस पॉइंट चाहिए, जो मटेरियल चाहिए, जो कलर चाहिए, जो पैटर्न्स चाहिए, जो फिट चाहिए, if the user is able to find those products really easily, then relevance की जर्नी तब जाके complete हुई, and the user will have 2-3 pieces of cloth in their basket which they would like to then try. ठीक है? Now let's say you entered a store and you found 2-3 shirts which fit into your requirement, which you feel are relevant to your need. What's the next thing you do?
Try them on, compare
Try
them.
them out, right? So what's necessarily a trial? Trial is evaluating, okay, is it keeping a promise? So when you wear it, when you feel it, if it fits really well, if it is exactly how you
Compatibility
imagine.
check sort of कि product तो अच्छा है
Basically
मेरे साथ.
तू evaluate कर रहा है ना कि is
हाँ.
it performing as it was looking on the shelf.
हाँ.
अब performance evaluate store में तो trial के through होता है. Amazon में when you see an unbranded stuff, you check ratings and reviews. हर कैटेगरी, हर प्रोडक्ट का वे ऑफ परफॉर्मेंस इवैल्यूएशन अलग अलग है. वो फाइनेंस में बहुत अलग होगा, वो ई-कॉम में बहुत अलग होगा, वो क्लोथिंग में बहुत अलग होगा, लाइक सबका अलग अलग है. Amazon पे रेटिंग रिव्यूज आर ग्रेट वे, एंड like thanks to Amazon we have ratings and review. If they would not have built this product to the scale they have built and the kind of trust they've created in rating and review as a product, we would not have, like Swiggy का rating review कुछ नहीं होता अगर Amazon would not have, like, so that's a gift which Amazon has given all of us. Okay, now we have ratings and reviews में people का some faith कि this is a great way to evaluate does a product really perform or not. But trying it on or reading reviews and ratings is a way through which you evaluate the performance. What is evaluating the performance? It is simply checking, does this brand really keep the promise which it is making? Okay, now you have evaluated, it looks great, one of the shirt looks great on you, and you are you're thinking of buying it. Would you directly make the purchase then, or would you go and check out other stores, given कि all 6 stores were equally important to you at the beginning?
मतलब assuming कि time है, resources की वो नहीं, हाँ definitely would check out कि same
Okay, so
price पे, जो आप mention के same price पे.
Right, so that's where you check advantage. You will go to 2 other stores. So I went to H&M first. My personal preferred store is H&M, but then I'll also go to Zara and check out if Zara has something better in the same price point, right? Then you check the advantage. I came to realize Zara doesn't have something which is offering a better advantage to me. I'll go back to H&M and make a purchase, right? Now, once the purchase is made and I wear it, let's say on the day of wedding, if a lot of people come to me and compliment me over that shirt or compliment me over the way I dressed up, that's when the circle fully completes. So the real promise which psychologically was being made wasn't have the most relevant stuff. The person was out there to dress up in something which gets him or her complimented that they look great on a very important day, right? So what was the real promise in this? Okay, this will impress people, right? That's why you wear fancy clothes. Otherwise, why would anybody wear fancy clothes, right? If you get compliments on the day of the wedding or that important day, then the real association will build. Then you will think, right, what I got from H&M got me complimented, and जो भी आप signaling करना चाहते थे, that's successful. So next time you go over to the mall and you have to decide, the choices are now narrow. You will not explore 10 brands, you'll not explore 6 brands, probably you'll just explore 2 brands. But the more iterations of this happen, जितना ज़्यादा iteration होते जाएगा, eventually you will reach a point if that brand consistently performs and keeps the promise, then you will stop giving the chance to other brands and you will directly go to that store and you will try to be as efficient as possible. The moment you start killing a brand is when the product stops performing as expected and needs change. आज कुछ ट्रेंड में है, उसके बाद में कुछ और ट्रेंड में होगा. इफ द प्रॉमिस ये था कि इसमें मैं कूल लगता हूँ, सो जिस मोमेंट पे वो प्रॉमिस ब्रेक होने लग जाएगा ना, उस मोमेंट पे वो ब्रांड एसोसिएशन वीक होने लग जाएगी. ऐसा नहीं है कि ब्रांड बना देना इज वेरी डिफेंसिबल. You can build a really successful brand also if you stop keeping up with the promise which you have made to people, right? So this is the entire journey of sort of marketing, and यही product की भी journey है. ये दिख पा रही है? ठीक है, तो let's get to अब इस जर्नी को सृष्टि, you want to do it for people who you relate to, or if you want to do it for people who you do not relate to, वो personal choice है देख, and that depends on you understanding really well. देखो सबका ना एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फीचर है ना, सेल्फ अवेयरनेस है. अगर आप में एक बहुत अच्छा सेल्फ अवेयरनेस नहीं है, which is honestly knowing and understanding yourself really well कि what am I good at, what am I not good at, and यहाँ पे काफी हद तक बिलीफ भी आ जाती है. बट बिलीफ का मतलब ये है कि आप बिलीव करते हो, उसका अभी प्रूफ पॉइंट नहीं है, बट यू कैन ऑपरेट बाय बिलीफ आल्सो, राइट? बट if you feel you're really good at understanding folks who 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 you मतलब वो तुमसे रिलेट नहीं कर पा रहे, मतलब तुम उस कंज्यूमर के कोहर्ट में नहीं आते हो या उसमें नहीं आते हो, बट यू स्टिल हैव वेरी हाई एम्पैथी एंड यू अंडरस्टैंड their motivation, insecurities, their needs, wishes really well, then you can obviously build for them as well. Nobody like has a say in it. Swapnil sir, isn't intuition is also shaped by very limited impression of our environment and personal circumstances? It is, Swapnil, but again, it's the best bet you have. Your intuition and using it in a place where you have very high judgment has the highest chance of you building something which really creates value. जैसे मुझे ऑनेस्टली इतना फर्क नहीं पड़ता है कि मैं बहुत ज्यादा बड़े मार्केट में ऑपरेट कर रहा हूँ या छोटे मार्केट में कर रहा हूँ. मुझे पर्सनली ज्यादा फर्क पड़ता है डेप्थ ऑफ इम्पैक्ट से, कि इफ आई क्रिएट अ बिग इनफ वैल्यू टू समबडीज लाइफ, आई value that over creating impact in as many lives as possible at the current stage in my life. So it's up to you if you want to operate with that, but this is how I personally operate. Yeah, research again, reiterating, when you do not trust your intuitions and you're not confident that your judgment will be high, do research. I'm not saying do not research. The takeaway of what I've said is not कि research मत करो, but know when you need to research. You need to research where you can't trust your intuition, where you have to go out and then ask the consumers directly. But एक बात समझो, consumers कभी भी है ना, decisions अधिकतर emotional होते हैं, rational decisions बहुत कम होते हैं, बहुत कम decisions rational है. तुम्हें अगर ये लगता है कि तुम जाओगे किसी से बात करोगे और वो तुम्हें खुल के अपनी इमोशनल नीड या वो ये क्यों कर रहा है, उसकी क्या इनसिक्योरिटी है, क्या मोटिवेशन है, वो बता देगा, तो मतलब if you feel like you can speak to people, make them feel like comfortable and open enough to sort of let you know why do they really need something they require, so then the research will turn successful. Then you'll really know why, क्योंकि यार वो इमोशनल डिसीजन मेकिंग है और हम सब है ना हार्डवायर हैं टू बी, हम सब के डिफेंस मैकेनिज्म विल नॉट अलाउ अस टू बी वल्नरेबल टू समबडी. इफ यू रियली फील you can understand somebody, see functional need आप बहुत आसानी से समझ सकते हो कि क्या इनकन्वीनियंट है, क्या ये है वो, etc etc, बट जहाँ पे इमोशनल नीड है वो समझना मुश्किल है. आई फाइंड इट वेरी इजी टू रिलाई ऑन माई इंट्यूशन व्हेन आई एम ऑपरेटिंग इन अ मार्केट आई रियली अंडरस्टैंड वेल, which is much like me, and I prefer to operate in that space for the time being जब तक I'm not too sure कि I have very high judgment about people other than me. But as I'm growing older and older, I'm understanding more people because as I age, I also relate to more. Now relate to somebody who's young. I also relate to somebody who's going through college. I also relate to people who are in their mid of their starting their career. I also relate to people who are reaching mid of their career or mid of their life. Right. So as I'm growing older, I'm able to empathize with more folks because simply I'm going through the same set of experiences and insecurities and motivations which they went through. Right. जैसे तुम लोग अभी कॉलेज में हो, I know trends are different, culture is different. डीप डाउन इमोशनली तुम डिसीजन कैसे लेते हो वो नहीं चेंज हुआ होगा, राइट? अब जब तक मुझे वो समझ में आ रहा है तब तक आई कैन स्टिल फिगर आउट हु यू आर एंड व्हाई वुड यू डू समथिंग व्हिच यू डू। कूल, आई थिंक अभी इस पे बहुत ज्यादा हो गया, आगे बढ़ते हैं।
Sir, I have a question.
हम्म,
So regarding the Wint Wells YouTube channel, like you started a series of versus podcasts and home tours. Sir, why did you select that topic? Like Wint Wealth has nothing to do with that domain.
व्हाट्स द डोमेन?
Like basically you are a fintech startup.
या
So yeah, basically how did you decided to come on those topics basically to market yourself and get a name for yourself in the YouTube and social
ठीक है,
media?
आई थिंक पहले तो डोमेन समझते हैं विंट वेल्थ का क्या है। देखो, मैं विंट वेल्थ को एक पर्सनल फाइनेंस, एटलीस्ट व्हेन इट कम्स टू यूट्यूब, आई डोंट थिंक ऑफ यूट्यूब एज अ प्लेस ऑफ पर्सनल फाइनेंस लर्निंग। I see it as a place where I am trying to build content around money. अब बात सोचो कि यार जब पर्सनल फाइनेंस बोल रहे हो और जब मनी बोल रहे हो तो इमोशंस बहुत चेंज होते हैं, हो रहे हैं ना? जब मैं पैसा बोल रहा हूँ या मनी बोल रहा हूँ और मैं पर्सनल फाइनेंस बोल रहा हूँ, पर्सनल फाइनेंस बहुत ड्राई है, फंक्शनल है, सुनते से उस इमोशन लेस लगता है, देयर इज नो स्कोप इन इट, राइट? वो बहुत ही नीड बेसिस पे आएगा, बहुत रैशनल चीज है। बट व्हेन आई से मनी, आई एम इमीडिएटली ओपनिंग a lot of possibilities, right? So सबसे पहले when you think of Wilt Wealth, don't think of it as a channel which is trying to do personal finance content. In fact, at this stage, don't even think of us like, I don't want to limit myself. But if at all you want to think something, think of it in this manner. Wint is a channel which is trying to help people understand money well and have a better relationship with their money. And why does this topic or this subject matters to me most? Because मैं जब से 3 साल का हूँ ना और आज मैं 30 साल का हूँ, मैंने लगभग हर दिन 9 से 10 घंटे है ना मनी के लिए स्पेंड करें अपनी लाइफ में। मेरी स्कूलिंग इसलिए नहीं हुई थी कि मैं बेहतर इंसान बन जाऊं, कि एक बहुत बेहतर वैल्यू वाला, या वो वैल्यूज मेरे घर वाले दे देते थे, बिना स्कूलिंग के भी दे देते जो उन्होंने दी है। मैं गया था स्कूल ताकि वो मेरे फ्यूचर के बारे में सिक्योर रह सके, ताकि उनको उनको लगे मैं बेहतर जगह जा पाऊं। और बेहतर की डेफिनेशन इस कंटेक्स्ट में तो यही है कि बेहतर लाइफस्टाइल हो, ज्यादा सिक्योर लाइफस्टाइल हो, आई कैन ऑफर बेटर फ्यूचर टू माय फ्यूचर जनरेशन, etc. आई कैन हेल्प माय फैमिली सॉर्ट ऑफ लिव अ बेटर लाइफ, राइट? ये सब चीजें, राइट? सो 3 साल से 30 साल में तुमने स्कूलिंग करी, कॉलेज किया, जॉब कर रहे हो, हर दिन 9-10 घंटे तुमने सिर्फ मनी के ही एक इंटेंशन से स्पेंड करें। एक पॉइंट तक वो तुम्हारे विल से नहीं था, तुमने स्कूलिंग अपने, तुम्हारा थोड़ी ना डिसीजन था तुम्हें स्कूल में डालेंगे तो तुम्हें डाल दिया गया था। बट कॉलेज से लेके आगे तक की जर्नी काफी हद तक तुम्हारी विल से है। करियर तुम बिल्ड कर रहे हो, वो अपनी विल से, वो बाय चॉइस है, फ्री विल है यहाँ पे, किसी ने धकेला नहीं है तुम्हें। तो by your own free will, yeah, even not by your own free will, you have spent a lot of time, जिस और 60 साल की उम्र तक करते ही रहोगे। तो जब 1/3 of your time spent in your entire life has money as an important factor or a central point or motivation, then वो सिंपली जिस पॉइंट मौके पे तुम अनलॉक उसको अक्नॉलेज कर लेते हो ना, तो तुम्हारा सेल्फ अवेयरनेस इंप्रूव, मतलब यार ये एक्सेप्ट करना बहुत जरूरी है। लॉट ऑफ पीपल डोंट एक्सेप्ट दिस and are in confused state. Once you accept it, life becomes easy. Then it doesn't has control over you. Then you have control over it. Because then you can set limits कि मैं मनी को इतना ही इंपॉर्टेंस दूंगा लाइफ में, या मैं इतना दूंगा, राइट? सो अगेन व्हेन आई थिंक ऑफ money, I think of something, or when I think of helping people improve their relationship with money, I think of something which people spend a large part of their life in. And when I think of things like that, then मेरा टैम या मार्केट काफी अनलॉक हो जाता है, राइट? सो अब वर्सेस वाले क्वेश्चन के कंटेक्स्ट में बात करते हैं कि वर्सेस के काफी सारे टॉपिक्स हमने करे हैं, राइट? आईटी वर्सेस नॉन आईटी, आईएएस वर्सेस एंटरप्रेन्योर, some of these choices which you are making, money remains a big feature of all of those decisions. ऐसा तो होगा नहीं कि मनी को ओवरलुक करके आप, मनी को ओवरलुक करना भी मनी रिलेटेड डिसीजन है ना? तो जब आप इस जब आप इस तरीके से सोच रहे हो कि मैं देखो, बहुत जरूरी है, एंड ये एंटरप्रेन्योर्स मार्केटर्स सबके साथ होता रहेगा कि उनकी एज दे ग्रो देयर ब्रांड ना, एज दे ग्रो देयर बिजनेस, उनका पोजिशनिंग क्या होता है? पोजिशनिंग मेरी ऑफरिंग है, मेरे रीजन, मेरे एग्जिस्टेंस का रीजन है कि मैं यहाँ हूँ बिकॉज मैं दूसरों के कंपैरिजन में ये ज्यादा वैल्यू दूंगा मार्केट को। तो पोजिशनिंग जब डिफाइन होती है तो मार्केट डिफाइन होता है, मार्केट की नीड डिफाइन होती है, एंड मैं क्यों एग्जिस्ट करता हूँ उसका एक रीजन डिफाइन होता है, एंड द रीजन हैज टू बी अ डिफरेंशिएटेड बिग इनफ वैल्यू ओवर अदर्स, so that there is a reason somebody should give you a chance over others. And the positioning will keep on evolving and expanding, and it will get, you'll start with something niche. Everyone always starts with something niche because that's the easier thing to do. But as they grow and understand the market more, their positioning grows, their vision grows, their purpose to do things grows, and purpose can become, we may have started out, we may have started out as a personal finance brand. Now we have expanded our vision to be, we want to help people build better relationship with money. I'm not someone who will try to opinionate something on you and say ऐसे ही relationship रखो money का, but I'll share all the perspectives which matter when it comes to having money related thoughts, or like money relationship, right? And I'll try to help. I have people who are very minimal on my channel who have come and said they've quit their 1 crore job and they now live a more purposeful life in Nilgiri. I also have someone who's a maximalist who wants to earn more but has ambition ke after a point he would want to give it back to the nation in some way or form, because he trusts his judgment better ke how does he want to deploy capital in betterment of society. He has more faith in himself than many people out there, so he wants to accumulate that but then give it back to the society, right? So all of these perspectives matter. I'm just a stage. For example, think of TED as a stage. All TED cares about is stories which create deep impact on humanity. तो टेड इज नॉट ट्राइंग टू टेल यू कि ये स्टोरी ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है उससे। टेड बस एक प्लेटफॉर्म है, उस पर स्टोरी आएंगी, बट स्टोरी किस क्वालिटी, नेचर और किस ऑब्जेक्टिव और पर्पस की आएंगी वो टेड का स्टेज इंश्योर करता है। So when you think of me, think of a place which is trying to help you improve your relationship with money, and since everybody is different from each other, as many stories can come on this stage as possible, right? And there could be stories where people have come out of debt. There could also be stories of people who have been financially disciplined from day one and have built really good wealth. There could be people who have जिन्होंने अपनी जरूरतें बहुत कम कर दी because they don't want to spend large point of, एक important feature money के साथ time का होता है. When you're early, when you don't have money, you value money over time. As you grow older and you have more money, you become more wiser in life. You value time more than money. Simple. Time value of money आपकी change होती रहती है, right? ये time को, मतलब ये concept पढ़ लेना है कि how do you value your time. Like वो इंश्योरेंस के बिजनेस में और इन सब बिजनेसेस में इन सबको कोडिफाई कर दिया गया है, राइट? बट इमोशनली भी आपको है ना धीरे धीरे होने लगता है कि यार अब वैल्यू मोर टाइम ओवर मनी बिकॉज अब लाइफ कम बची है, राइट? तो जैसे जैसे टाइम कम होगा यू विल वैल्यू टाइम ओवर मनी, इन विच केस यू मे चूज कि यार मुझे ये सब चीजें नहीं चाहिए बिकॉज आई हैव लिमिटेड टाइम, सो आई विल स्पेंड इट डूइंग थिंग्स व्हिच आई फील मोर पर्पसफुल देन अर्निंग मनी और मेकिंग मनी, राइट? सो as you expand the positioning, you can put more stories in place and you can bring more people into the fold and build a connection with them. If you'll be very rigid and very narrow from day one कि मुझे यही करना है and not evolve over time, then it's very difficult to go after a very large market, right? Definition of VC business एक certain scale से ही चालू होती है. इस स्केल के नीचे का कुछ भी बिल्ड करना का मतलब ये है कि यार फिर VC का पैसा क्यों उठाया, क्योंकि when you raise money from VCs, वहां पे एक प्रॉमिस हो गया है कि we'll big enough business. Cool. Did that answer your question, Manas?
Yes, sir. It actually did.
Okay. Let's move to the next question. Should we go by people raising hand, or do you want to follow the list of questions we collected?
Sir, it's up to you. Whatever you want.
Okay. Kashish, can you turn on your camera? Yeah, you're already there. हाँ, बताओ.
सर आप बिजनेस एंड स्टार्टअप का कंपैरिजन एंड आपके लिए उनके बीच में क्या डिफरेंस है वो बता सकते हैं?
यार वो डिफरेंस ही नहीं है ना, मतलब ऐसे क्या डिफरेंस देखते हो तुम एक बिजनेस और एक स्टार्टअप में? स्टार्टअप इज जस्ट अ स्टेज ऑफ अ कंपनी, कि एक पॉइंट तक उसे आप स्टार्टअप।
जनरली लोग मानते हैं कि उनमें कुछ तो डिफरेंस होता
मेरे को वो बताओ तुम क्या मानते हो, ताकि मैं उसे फिर उस पे कमेंट कर
है। मैं
सकूं।
कुछ नहीं मानता, स्टार्टअप एक लाइक एक आइडिया है एंड उसके बाद तो पूरा वो बिजनेस है।
देखो जस्ट सिंपली स्टार्टअप को इस तब में मत घुसो। सिंपल एक कंपनी है जिसको वैल्यू क्रिएट करनी है, उसके रीजन ऑफ एक्सिस्टेंस एक ही है कि इनकम्बेंट। देखो एक बिग फीचर ऑफ बिल्डिंग एनीथिंग और बीइंग एबल टू बिल्ड एनीथिंग इज हैविंग सॉर्ट ऑफ अ नॉन कॉम्प्रोमाइजेबल एटीट्यूड इन लाइफ, राइट? यू विल नॉट, इफ अगर तुम्हारी टेंडेंसी है कि तुम हर चीज के साथ एडजस्ट कर लेते हो, कॉम्प्रोमाइज कर लेते हो, तो फिर तो तुम्हें कोई नई चीज की जरूरत ही नहीं है ना। अगर तुम में एक नॉन कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग एटीट्यूड है, एंड यहाँ पे मैं ऐसे रिवोल्ट करने को नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, मैं बोल रहा हूँ कंस्ट्रक्टिवली बिल्ड समथिंग। इफ यू आर नॉट ओके अबाउट एनीथिंग इन लाइफ एंड you want to sort of change that by creating something which offers better value because you feel people deserve better because I deserve better, then you have an existence to, you have a reason to build something up. Now depending upon the scale of what your idea and vision is, you will require capital, you will require resources. If you want to build it bootstrap, the only difference is it will take a lot of time, because the starting point where you will have limited resources, which means that with those resources you will create more resources and more resources to eventually a point where you can create what you had visioned out. And second route is you raise money from outside. You are enabled from day one to create things at scale, but then you also have obligation towards people who you have raised money. Whether you have taken debt, you have to return that money with interest. Whether you have raised it equity, then you have to create a certain value, and give them returns, right? So starting up is just an act of, uh, to me, it's just an act of realizing that there is something I don't feel okay about and I want to change that, and that initial journey. बट उसको बिजनेस से भी चेंज कर देगा तो ऐसा नहीं है कि गलत हो गया वो business। अगर बिजनेस का मतलब सिंपल है, अगर उसका कमर्शियल एस्पेक्ट है, इफ इट इज बीइंग डन विद द इंटेंशन ऑफ मेकिंग मनी, तो वो बिजनेस है। जैसे सोशल स्टार्टअप भी होते हैं, राइट? सोशल स्टार्टअप होते हैं, उनका इंटेंशन पैसा कमाना नहीं है, उनका इंटेंशन सोशल इम्पैक्ट है। So starting up is just an act of sort of taking an action to change something which you, अगर उसका कमर्शियल वैल्यू है कि इंटेंशन ये है कि उससे कमर्शियल इम्पैक्ट क्रिएट हो, पैसा बने किसी का, तुम्हारा, इन्वेस्टर्स का, देन वो एक बिजनेस है। डिड दैट आंसर योर क्वेश्चन?
ओके, यस यस।
ठीक है, चलो ओवर टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन। यार बोर तो नहीं हो रहे हो ना?
Sir, I wanted to ask one thing. Sir,
एंड यार
like,
लेट्स गिव चांस टू अदर फोक्स, एंड में अपन बात कर लेंगे वाली, बट
okay,
लेट्स गिव chance to other folks as well,
okay, okay.
or we can refer to the list of questions we had. ठीक है, let's say a question. ये बहुत ज़्यादा बिजनेस पे डिपेंड करता है, लाइक इफ यू रियली अंडरस्टैंड योर बिजनेस वेल। फॉर एग्जांपल, लॉन्ग टर्म गोल्स बिकम वे मोर important if the decision making is very tough for a consumer. For example, let's say buying a cloth versus deciding which school to put your kid in. Like, you know which decision is harder to make, right? Which has higher switching cost, which will require more trust, right? And with lot more thinking and etc, right? So when the decisions are as simple as buying a shirt or toothpaste you want to buy, over there you may prioritize short-term goals over long-term goals. Not saying long-term goals are not important, but let's say if the decision is something as tough as deciding which school to put your kid in, then it is very important to over-index on long-term goals. Very, very important, because it is absolutely impossible to build a very sustainable brand or business just by doing short term activities. Short term activities क्या होंगी ना, देखो इसको ब्रेक करते हैं मार्केट में. अगेन लोगों को एक और दो बकेट में डाल सकते हो. पीपल हु नीड समथिंग इमीडिएटली एंड पीपल हु डोंट नीड इट इमीडिएटली बट विल नीड इट इन फ्यूचर. फॉर एग्जाम्पल हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस है, या हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस नहीं कुछ और ले लेते हैं. यू वांट टू बाय अ कंप्यूटर. You may be in a dire need of computer now and you may be in dire need of computer in future. So your short term activities will try to focus on converting those folks who are in need of it right now. तो शॉर्ट टर्म में रिजल्ट वहीं से ही आएगा ना. जिसको अभी जरूरत है उसको उसको रीच आउट करके उसको कन्विंस करने की कि आई हैव द बेस्ट ऑफरिंग. लॉन्ग टर्म गोल्स आर नीडेड. फोकसिंग ऑन लॉन्ग टर्म गोल्स आर नीडेड if there are a lot of folks who do not need it now but will need it in future, at least marketing के context में. now अब मार्केट को देखो, टूथपेस्ट हर महीने लगता है, शर्ट हर मतलब कुछ कुछ चीजें जो बहुत हाई फ्रीक्वेंसी है, राइट. वहां पे तुम ओवर इंडेक्स कर दोगे शॉर्ट टर्म एक्टिविटी पे, योर रिजल्ट्स विल स्टार्ट पाइलिंग अप इमीडिएटली, राइट. there are certain decisions which are not which are more important than this, and it will simply not be possible to trust you right now just by your short term activities, which means you need to invest a lot of your effort in building trust, because these are very important decisions and they will not simply trust anybody new. You will have to invest more in long term goals. How do you strike balance between the same? I think पहले तो ये determine करना कि what sort of business am I in, what sort of market and offering am I in. If you understand that really well, then वो distinction create हो जाएगा. Okay, how much should you pay attention to short term goals, how much should you pay attention to long term goals, and then the choices would be really easy. जैसे for us, we are building a finance brand, right. अभी मैं तुमको 1000 रुपए, दो लोगों को, एक इंसान को 1000 रुपए खर्च करने के लिए देता हूँ और 1000 रुपए इन्वेस्ट करने के लिए देता हूँ. which one out of the two would you think more about? and amount उतना ही है, 1000 रुपए. between the two you will spend more time thinking where to invest ना, whereas where to spend your money in. and assume कर लेते हैं you are aware about as many choices to spend on as you are aware about choices to invest on. उसके बाद भी you'll spend more time evaluating where to put your money in, right. So between the two, if you come to realize which decision requires more learning effort, which decision सब खेल learning effort का है कि if something will require more time to learn about you and trust you, then you should definitely go heavy on all the long term goals from the get go. Because see, most of these things have gestation period. The amount of time to get it right will always be a lot. So you're just delaying it by not choosing to start it from the beginning. It is in your control how much resource you allocate to long term initiative versus short term initiative, depending the stage of the company you are at. You can choose to, you can always regulate कि ठीक है अभी long term में इतना ही resources डालते हैं. When you say resources, amount of fund you are putting in it, amount of team members you are putting in it, amount of resources you are giving them to build something out, right. You can always choose to keep a balance between the two. But what people get wrong is just building that judgment. If you build that judgment ना, बाकी आगे का सब सही हो जाएगा. बाकी सब सिर्फ execution है. So firstly, try to build the judgment. Okay, do you need long-term initiative? Does your business require long-term initiative, or does it not require long-term initiatives? For example, जैसे जहाँ भी लोगों के लिए जिस भी business में Google पसंद की दुकान है, Google is a shop of shops, right? So जहाँ पे किसी भी एक शॉप ने वो पोजिशनिंग नहीं ले ली है कि दिस इज द प्रेफर्ड शॉप फॉर डूइंग समथिंग, वहां पे लोग गूगल ही करेंगे. अब गूगल लोग करेंगे और उस पॉइंट पे आपने एसईओ में इन्वेस्ट नहीं किया है, देन यू विल एंड अप स्पेंडिंग मनी इन सर्च इंजन मार्केटिंग, व्हिच इज बेसिकली यू स्पेंड मनी टू सो दैट योर सर्च रिजल्ट रैंक्स ऑन टॉप. अब वो इनएफिशिएंट हो गई. एंड इफ यू नो के पॉइंट ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन गूगल रहने वाला है, and you don't invest in SEO now when you know it will take 3-4 years for my result to rank top on a certain search, then you will have to spend money inefficiently in ranking on top, right? But let's say if you would have invested in that, then 3 or 4 years down the line, your result would have been there organically and incrementally. You don't have to spend a lot of money to keep that holding on that position, because you just have to sort of keep on working on your content or product experience, which is still low cost compared to sort of continuing to spend money on search engine marketing. Is this point becoming clear, या इस पे अभी भी कुछ aspect है जो समझ में नहीं आ रहा है? ठीक है. So I think इसको if you get into nitty gritty of things and start thinking about, जैसे ये सारे आंसर वो जो मैंने फ्रेमवर्क बताया ना, अवेयरनेस, रेलेवेंस, परफॉर्मेंस, एडवांटेज, ईटीसी, जब तुम हर चीज को उधर ही इवैल्यूएट करने लग जाओगे तो धीरे धीरे थिंग्स विल स्टार्ट बिकमिंग मोर क्लियरर टू यू.
Sir, if you want to conclude, we can conclude also. Whatever works with you.
आई कैन स्पेंड हाफ एन आवर मोर, क्योंकि अगर कुछ बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस बाकी हैं which people would want to listen about, we can do that.
Yeah, that's completely fine. Depends on you.
We can continue, like if there are any more questions you want answers about. I can spend half an hour more. हाँ, and बताओ.
Uh, so what my limited scope of opinion is right now, that marketing is not very well much valued in comparison to building right now. Like most of the opportunities, like for us college students as well, are mostly for building, not for selling. And that is scope, sir, like for building a marketing perspective of things, what do you recommend, sir? Like, how can one gain experience in that scenario and also build a good sense of marketing profile in order to gain a decent or a good opportunity in the future?
यार मुझे largely ये लगता है कि that is very specific to the environment you are in, right? And it is also because people have very narrow view about you. Bits की जनता वो उनके narrow view से, right? जैसे see, I put people in, when it comes to sort of marketing and product, I put people in two buckets, right? One bucket is the crafting bucket. People who have the skill to create the product of the quality which you want to build. So if you don't have the right coders, you don't have the right designers, if you don't have right craft people in your team, then you'll never be able to bring the product you're imagining to the life, right? So you do need people who are talented like that. But on the other side, you also need people who have very high judgment of the market, who know what the market wants. My focus stays more towards people who have high judgment. Like and that's where the disconnect is, right? Marketing, maybe dono skill set चाहिए. If you have some vision and you don't have a great cinematographer, you'll never be able to bring it to life, right? So I think there are two skill sets. People may be putting you in a narrow bucket where they think के bits में शायद यही skill set के लोग ज़्यादा हैं, and as a result it might be happening के they may not realize के there are folks of other skill set. So ये सब यार narrow views की वजह से है, क्योंकि somebody might think के इस certain category में या इसके market में जिस तरह का judgment चाहिए वो शायद college students के पास अभी ना हो. It could be that, right? The way I like to think about is, अगर मुझे कुछ ऐसा product build करना है which is meant for Gen Zs, then the best place to hire product folks or marketing folks is actually hiring freshers or college students or interns from, because they exactly know what that audience feels, thinks, operates like, उनकी insecurity क्या है, what are they motivated about, etc. Right? So if I'm building for, let's say, people between the age of 20 to 30, probably I'll hire people who are fresh out of college to think about what product to build. What does the market really want? They may not have the necessary crafting skill at that point, but वो intuition, वो judgment उनके पास better होगा, and they're better at building something like this than 40-year-olds. So a smart 40-year-old who's trying to build something for Gen Z would surround him or herself with a lot of Gen Zs and rely on their judgment. Would a lot of people be interested in this? Would they see novelty in this? Would this be something which will create emotional impulse in them? एकदम feel like consuming this immediately, right? So and as a result, marketing का perspective तुम्हारे around build नहीं हो पा रहा है, because वो conversation ही नहीं हो रही ना. अगर तुम्हारे आसपास वो conversation होगी तब जाके तो तुम्हें उसकी importance पता चलेगी. If you want to change that, then step out of the environment and be an environment जहाँ पे marketing की conversations हो रही हैं इस तरह की. right? Just put yourself in that position, and see, you can just put yourself in that position by just being following the right folks on Twitter. Like मुश्किल नहीं है वो, like बहुत ज्यादा accessibility है अभी तो. If anybody is complaining out there कि नहीं हो रहा है तो बहुत बेवकूफी वाली बात है, क्योंकि there are brilliant marketing minds out there, and they're sort of very openly, without any insecurity, sharing everything which they've learned in their life out on internet. You start consuming the right folks, you will start building perspective about it. Just say I know a lot of bits folks who understood product uh, management just by following the right folks on Twitter. And I think it's a culture in your community bits की जहाँ पे ये हो पाया है, because fewer people picked it up from Twitter and now वो culture है जो pass on हो रहा है. So probably seniors will tell their juniors के product management सीखना है तो ये 3-4 लोगों को follow करें, and that culture will refine and iterate over and over and will become very condensed. कि एक fresher तक कोई advice मिल जाएगी तो वो first year से ही product management सीख लेगा, right? So I think just find the right folks to listen to hear from about marketing, and that will build your perspective, and then you can decide is that something you want to think. But see, marketing and building alag nahi hai. Like at the very beginning, I established marketeers are trying to convince people to spend their time and attention. Product guys may be convincing people to do the same, or maybe trying to convince people to spend time and money both. So I don't see marketing as not building, it is actually building.
Understood, sir. Thank you.
हाँ, स्किल सेट अलग है पर हाँ, बिल्ड तो दोनों कर रहे हैं, बट द स्किल सेट रिक्वायर्ड टू डू द टू थिंग्स आर वेरी वेरी डिफरेंट. तो think of both of them as building, but see what is more in tune with you in terms of what the skill set you would want to build or work upon.
Sir, how you want to proceed further?
यार तुम लोग यार कैमरा बंद करके बैठे हो, फिर कुछ पूछ भी नहीं रहे हो यार. ऐसा इंप्रेशन तो मत छोड़ो बिट्स का मुझ पे कुछ. See, I have time, but I'm only going to spend it if people are different than Ayan and Kashish and somebody else is going to sort of make use of that time. Otherwise, we can conclude it. So if you have a question, come up and ask right now. या अगर कोई क्वेश्चन सबमिट किया था जो एड्रेस नहीं हुआ है, then just raise your hand and let's go about it. Yeah, Khushi, hi.
Hello. So my question to you is that what was your approach to community building and user engagement to build a sense of belonging among your customers?
Okay, got it. The user engagement or community building, like I don't think of them. They may have some commonality between the thing, but जब business के context में ये दो word use होते हैं तो ये थोड़े अलग है. User engagement इस context में use किया जाता है कि आपने किसी user को acquire कर लिया है and you want to retain that user, क्योंकि यार तुम्हारा distribution तुमने इतनी मेहनत करके acquire करा बहुत सारे millions of user को. But acquire करके अगर if you don't keep them engaged, it's as good as losing those users, right? So if you keep those users engaged, then that reflects in terms of your daily active user, monthly active user, right? So monthly active user is the right expression of कितना distribution आपके पास actually है, not के total installs कितने हैं, total downloads कितने हैं, etc. How many people are monthly active defines how many people can you actually distribute to in a month or in a day if you are referring to daily active user. And user engagement is activity through which you keep the users active, which means there is a reason for them to come and sort of engage with you. Now, engagement बहुत चीजों से create हो सकती है, right? So I'm not going to go into that. जैसे अगर आप cred को देखोगे तो cred तो कितनी चीजें करता है engage करने के लिए. They have Periscope, they have games, they have a lot of e-commerce inventory, different deals coming, etc. All of that is just to maintain or grow the monthly active users they have. Cred actually thinks and operates a lot like a social media, जहाँ पे it is trying to compete with other social networks in terms of the time people spend on Cred versus on Facebook, Instagram, right? Like उनकी टीम में ये एक important metric होगा. Neelam will get to you in a minute, right? उनकी टीम में एक इंपॉर्टेंट मेट्रिक होगा कि यार लास्ट मंथ में जितने भी यूजर्स एक्टिव थे दे स्पेंट एवरेज 15 मिनट्स पर वीक विद अस. Let's get that to 16 17. It's very tough. Getting from 15 to 16 minutes is also tough. आप सोचो, somebody is spending, let's say, in a week, if they spend 6 7 hours on a phone screen, and that time is not going to increase, and hopefully it shouldn't increase more, right? But if somebody is spending 6 7 hours in front of minute, and you have 15 minutes of it, then to me that's a lot. And then there are apps on which you spend hours. So Instagram is impressive because a lot of people are spending weekly 2 3 hours on it, right? And hence they know how to engage user. So engaging user is just an act of offering something which people like to spend their time on, right? Now let's talk about community building. We have not started building community here at Wint because currently we don't feel. See, let's understand what the community is. To me, a community is a group of people with shared sense of identity. So wherever there is a shared sense of identity, there is a community. Now, depending upon वो shared of sense of identity कितना deep है उनके लिए, से पता चलता है कि वो community कितना engage करती होगी एक दूसरे के साथ. जैसे मैं बोलता हूँ कि तुम सब बिट्स में हो, तो तुम सब एक community का हिस्सा हो. एक shared sense of identity है, तो तुम एक दूसरे से बाहर, अब तुम जाओगे यहाँ से, निकल जाओगे कॉलेज से, और जब भी तुम किसी से मिलोगे और you will be surprised to know ये भी बिट्स से है, तो एक sense of community आएगा, right? And you guys will engage about it. उससे ज्यादा डीप है पीपल हु आर फ्रॉम, लेट्स से, द सेम हॉस्टल. उससे ज्यादा डीप है पीपल हु आर फ्रॉम द सेम विंग, या फिर जो भी तुम्हारे यहाँ पे ग्रुप्स बनते हैं, जैसे ये एम्ब्रियो है, या फिर तुम्हारे कॉलेज फेस्ट ग्रुप है, वहां यू कुड से कि द सेंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी इज डीपर देन जस्ट हम सब बिट्स है, कि यू विल तो जहां भी एक शेयर्ड सेंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी होता है ना, वहाँ एक कम्युनिटी बन सकती है. और वो बनती तब है जब वो शेयर्ड सेंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी वाले लोग आपस में आके बात करें या एक दूसरे से एंगेज करने लग जाए, राइट? अब जब मैं कंटेंट क्रिएट कर रहा हूँ, उसको एक देखने वाले लोग बार बार आते हैं, तो उन सब में एक शेयर्ड सेंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी है कि वी ऑल एंजॉय कंटेंट लाइक दिस. जब तक एक डीप इनफ सेंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी नहीं क्रिएट हो सकता, तब तक स्टेपिंग इनटू कम्युनिटी बिल्डिंग इज नॉट फ्रूटफुल. एंड वी हैव ऑनेस्टली नॉट thought or looked into this direction because अभी वहां पे रिसोर्स एलोकेट करना हमारे लिए तो feasible नहीं है, right? जैसे for someone like cred, where there are so many people who just use cred because they just love cred, there is a shared sense of identity that cred has a core audience, probably in millions, yeah, probably in some number, right? Where all of them have a love for cred, so there could be a place where they can come and talk and express that or engage on that, right? So community building, the first step I think is understanding what shared sense of identity do people have, and then being able to bring them together and engage over that identity. And then फिर क्या engagement उसमें हो सकता है, वो सब etc देखना होगा. Did that give you a starting point?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so
Right.
much.
Now community के बारे में जब भी सोचना है ना, then try to think from the communities which you already observe in your life, your family, your friends. How do they engage? Religion is a very important shared sense of identity for them. So there are several ways a community engages where there is a shared sense because they are part of the same religion. So when people, let's say, turn up in at this time of the year, if people are turning up in, let's say, Navratri Pandal, they turn up because they have a shared sense of identity and there is engagement being done. So a community उस pandal में आ रही है to engage with that activity. क्यों? Because there is a shared sense of identity. And then there is engagement which they feel like is true to that identity. जाएंगे, पंडाल देखेंगे, आरती करेंगे, चाप खाएंगे, etc शॉपिंग करेंगे, ये सब चीजें. They associate these activities with that sense of identity. So take examples from your own life. उधर से ही तुमको काफी हद तक है ना चमकने लग जाएगा कि ये कैसे ऑपरेट होती है. एंड अगर वो सेंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी स्ट्रांग नहीं है, देन पीपल विल नॉट टर्न अप. It has to be a very strong sense of identity. रॉयल इनफील्ड वालों को देखो, उनका क्या वाइब करते हैं वो लोग एक दूसरे के साथ, उनका सेंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी, अब वो किस रीजन से करते हैं उसे जज नहीं करेंगे, बट पीपल हु लाइक राइडिंग बाइक्स स्पेसिफिकली रॉयल एनफील्ड हैव अ वेरी हाई सेंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी, एंड ये सब क्यों है, क्या है, किन इनसिक्योरिटीज की वजह से है, etc वी आर नो वन टू जज द यूजर्स और कंज्यूमर। हमें पता है कि इन सबको they see owning this bike and riding it as a important sense of their identity, and hence they find it easy to come and sort of meet other like-minded people and go on a ride with them, and that activity is sort of like the reason they came together, so it works. तो अगर वो सेंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी बहुत ज्यादा स्ट्रांग है ना, तो ठीक है, अगर वो नहीं है देन फर्स्ट प्लेस में वो क्रिएट करनी पड़ेगी, विच मीन्स के वो कनेक्शन अगर नहीं एग्जिस्ट करता तो पहले वो ब्रांड को कनेक्शन, जैसे रॉयल एनफील्ड का कनेक्शन है उतना डीप विद इट्स कंज्यूमर, हेंस इट वाज एबल टू बिल्ड अ कम्युनिटी अराउंड इट। अगर वो इतना डीप कनेक्शन नहीं होता ना, तो नहीं होता, एंड वो सब भी सिग्नलिंग के लिए है। जैसे वो प्रोडक्ट असली में तो ऑफ रोडिंग के लिए बना है, लॉन्ग डिस्टेंसेस के लिए बना है, बट कोई बैंगलोर जैसी सिटी में उसे घुमा रहा है, डजंट मेक अ लॉट ऑफ सेंस। द सेम जॉब एन एक्टिवा कुड हैव डन बेटर इन माय ओपिनियन, बट एक सेंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी है उसमें, और मुझे लगता है मुझे वही सेंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी चाहिए, क्योंकि मेरी सिक्योरिटी, आई फील मोर सिक्योर दैट वे, मेरी इनसिक्योरिटीज उससे, इमोशनल इनसिक्योरिटी से केटर होती है, इसलिए मैंने प्रोडक्ट खरीद लिया। नाउ आई हैव अ कम्युनिटी वेयर आई फील आई बिलोंग। People associate themselves with different identities because there is something, अरे यार ये spirituality में नहीं घुसेंगे, but there is something which they want to fill themselves with, so they fill it with an identity. If that identity is deep enough, then there could be a community around it where people, like-minded people, will gather and then engage over that identity. Cool.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, I think Neelam, you had a question. Neelam, are you there? Shrishti, you had a follow through. Do you think providing free membership for limited time is beneficial? I think more important is free membership of what? Uh, मतलब free membership will get people to try something, experience something. Free membership वो परफॉर्मेंस वाली जो स्टेज मैंने बताई थी ना, उसका जस्ट एक हैक है, टेक्टिक है, कि आप फ्री में यूज करके देखो, ये परफॉर्म करेगा जैसा आप चाहते हो, एंड दैट विल लीड टू सब्सिक्वेंट परचेस। सो इसको इसी कंटेक्स्ट में देखो कि इफ यू फील योर बिजनेस मॉडल और योर यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स अलाउज यू टू गिव अ फ्री मेंबरशिप, क्योंकि द मोमेंट यू गिव फ्री मेंबरशिप, आपको कस्टमर को मेंबरशिप देना प्रैक्टिकली फ्री नहीं है ना, देयर इज अ कॉस्ट। अब वो कॉस्ट आप यूनिट लेवल पे, यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स को ऐसे समझो, द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट कॉस्ट टू फर्स्ट एटलीस्ट मेक इनफ मनी कि द कॉस्ट ऑफ सर्विंग द कस्टमर और द कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्ट इज रिकवर्ड, राइट? मेरे जो प्रोडक्ट का कॉस्ट है, स्पॉटिफाई का जो मेंबरशिप, उनका प्रॉफिट मार्जिन हटा के जो एक्चुअली में कॉस्ट ऑफ सर्विंग कस्टमर होगा वो कुछ होगा, राइट? सो मान लो वो 25 रुपए है, 26 रुपए है। अब अगर आप फ्री मेंबरशिप दे रहे हो तो उसी मोमेंट पे वो कॉस्ट मार्केटिंग कॉस्ट बन जाती है, कि 25 रुपए मैंने कस्टमर को अक्वायर करने के लिए कर लिया। इवेंचुअली व्हेन फ्यूअर ऑफ दोस पीपल विल ट्रांजैक्ट, एंड एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम इफ योर यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स इज पॉजिटिव, मतलब आई थिंक यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स अभी कवर करना बहुत मुश्किल होगा, ऑल ऑफ यू शुड रीड अबाउट इट, बट it is beneficial because it drives trial of your product. It lets people try that product and understand, okay, is this something which is fulfilling my need, um, and then if you can also make the unit economics work, then why not? uh, we get free memberships from different bank accounts. India mein to it won't work. Tell me, like, give me an example of a membership of a kind. You can also speak, unmute yourself and of that sort. Okay, got it. So there are two credit cards, and one of them is offering a Netflix subscription, right? So let's understand Netflix credit card ka business kya hai, right? Credit card is saying if you spend your money right and you pay your bills on time, I'm going to incentivize you for that good financial behavior. That's what credit cards do, right? And in that incentive, they can offer variety of things, right? They offer reward points, they offer cashback, they offer different benefits, etc. So when they're for them, that Netflix subscription is not is the product they're offering. The free Netflix subscription is eventually the part of the product offering. It is not meant to drive trial of your product. It is meant as an offering. Okay, you spend this much and you pay your bills on time, and these are the rewards you will get out of it, right? And now they are within the guardrails of unit economics. They can't operate unprofitably, right? So when I say within the guardrail of unit economics, what I mean to say is they are not making any offering which they'll not be able to afford, and they'll lose money, right? So within the guardrails of unit economics, they're trying to outmaneuver each other in terms of giving user a better reward. At least in it should appear a better reward compared to the users, right? So a Spotify offering a free membership for first month is very different from a credit card offering free membership of Netflix for a couple of months, right? What the credit card is doing is for the credit card, that's the product they're offering. For Spotify, they're trying to drive trial of their own product. It's helping Spotify get more and more people to evaluate the performance they have. So in अंडरस्टैंड कि ये फ्री मेंबरशिप और ये किसी एक कंटेक्स्ट में जाके सॉल्व कर रहा है सो इसको देखो यार पे नहीं होती तुम इतना अर्ली होते हो ना तो तुम्हें ये सारी चीजें पता होती हैं टैक्टिक्स पता होती हैं बट यू आर फोकसिंग टू मच ऑन दी व्हाट कि ये क्या है राइट इफ यू विल जस्ट फ्लिप द क्वेश्चन एंड फोकस ये तक तुम लोग इतना यूट्यूब देखते हो तुमने ये सब साइमन सेनेक और इन सब के वीडियोस देखे होंगे गोल्डन सर्कल ईटीसी के व्हाट से पहले फिगर आउट हाउ एंड व्हाई राइट तो अब ये फ्रेमवर्क एग्जिस्ट करता है प्रॉब्लम यू विल ऑलवेज हैव इज स्टिकिंग टू द फ्रेमवर्क क्योंकि फ्रेमवर्क कहाँ यूज करना है वो पता होना चाहिए ना तो सबसे बड़ा क्वेश्चन तो ये है कि नॉलेज कितना भी गेन कर लोगे बट इफ यू डोंट नो द राइट मोमेंट एट विच यू शुड टेक अ पॉज एंड यूज द फ्रेमवर्क टू थिंक then you will not be able to leverage those frameworks, right? So when you ask question like these, you know you're largely asking about what you're not trying to sort of ask what's the right question, like focus more on why and how. What पे बहुत बाद में आना है बहुत बहुत आखिरी में उस पे आना है okay if there are not more questions we can conclude
Okay, sir. I guess it's time to conclude on that.
Acha, before we conclude, I think there are just 21 people left. We started with somewhere around 45, 50. And the retention rate is sort of like half of it. So I'm happy with that. But just a show of hand and genuine show of hand. Just want to know how much did you enjoy this session? Manas, tu to yaar kar hi dega, but I'll not count yours. just a genuine show of hand if you really enjoyed it. There is no pressure. If you didn't enjoy it, don't raise your hand. Cool. So 7 out of it, probably 7, 6, maybe 10 out of you enjoyed the session. Okay, that's a good number to start with, at least for me.
Okay. It has actually been a very pleasure to host you, sir. And I would like to thank you for providing us with such an informative discussion. And actually, it was really nice. Like it was an AMA session which was very productive, I guess. And I would also like to thank the audience on behalf of Embryo for joining in. So yeah, it's been a great pleasure to host you. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you for making time. Hope this was useful and this turns into something real for you. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.